week with a new guest. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and my guest today is Julian McBrowne. We're really happy to have him on the show. If you've been to any theater or music production in town, whether it's Next Stage, NEYT, Yellow Barn, Vermont Jazz Center, et cetera, chances are really good that Julian McBrowne is somewhere out of sight making it all happen. Julian's an audio engineer and a masterful production manager, whether in the studio or in live performances. He's toured the world and he's worked with many musicians, including Janet Jackson, Toots and the Maytals, and Kid Creole and the Coconuts. Welcome, Julian.
Thanks so much. I'm so flattered you asked me to come and be on the show. It's great.
Well, we're flattered that you're here. It's always wonderful when people say yes.
Right,
I like that a lot.
Right.
So yeah, you've been around town for quite a while, although your early days were on Long Island.
Right. I grew up on Long Island and went to grade school and high school on Long Island, and even went to college on Long Island. I went to Hofstra University for theater, actually.
You were in a Waldorf school growing up, and that was kind of unusual for, what, was 60s?
Yeah, it was definitely unusual. Interesting, it's unusual in that when I get the information from them now, the school, the population looks completely different. It looks, you know, it's fabulous. But this was it was a good experience. And it gave me a good appreciation of kind of the way the arts fit into the rest of the educational experience. So that they did really well.
Yeah.
And you know, I enjoyed it. I got to do some theater there. I got to do singing and, you know, madrigal group and choruses and all these things. Many things that, you know, I found out later that there are many people who didn't have any of that stuff and never, you know, and kind of came to it as adults and as a different experience. And I was fortunate that was always part of my, you know, part of my world.
Yes, and you didn't know otherwise either, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
At the time I didn't know otherwise.
Yes,
right.
yeah. So many people talk about, you know, the early days and how they wanted to go into art, but, you know, they were good in math and science, so they went into engineering and kind of never got back to it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, Waldorf School, they brought all those things into the classroom.
Yeah.
They didn't necessarily encourage you to go out and be an artist, but kind of when the time came, it was, you know, I wasn't discouraged, and I had a good background to go forward that way.
Yeah, you were pretty much an urban kid growing up, but you did spend time at a camp in the summer in New Hampshire, so you had a little rural.
Yeah, exactly. That was because I spent so many summers really right in Marlborough, New Hampshire. That made perfect sense to me. It made perfect sense to me to be here, certainly in the summer. Yeah. And it kind of grew to include the other seasons, but yeah, that made a lot of sense to me. And I spent time, and that the camp was associated with the Waldorf School, and so there was lots of going into the woods and lots of experiences that just made me love this part of the world.
Right.
And in fact, from the lawn of the main house of Camp Glenbrook, you can see Mount Monadnock. It's just there.
It's right there.
It's right there.
It's really right across the river, actually, right?
Yeah, right.
Where you were. You were interested in theater, though, so there must have. Was there anything in particular growing up that spurred that for you?
Well, I'll be totally honest with you. You know, I really, I mean, it's funny because I'm just thinking about this, right? You know, my mom kind of made sure that we went to church, and she encouraged me to be an altar boy and all that stuff, which I was. And when the time came that I was less invested in what was going on at church, in the end, I really found I enjoyed the theater part of it, the presentation part of the whole experience.
Yeah.
And so that kind of pushed me in that that's one of the things in my background that pushed me in that
Yeah.
in that direction.
That's so interesting because it's really a different perspective, right? An altar, a stage.
Oh,
Yep.
Absolutely.
Not a big jump.
Not a big jump, really.
Yeah.
But so anyway. But that was kind of where that was one of the places that came from. So when I got to college and I started to, I acted in some things, and it was rewarding but fleeting. My first job in the business, where I worked at an advertising agency, and taped auditions for radio and television commercials. I was always like interested in kind of what was going on the other side of the glass, and what the producers were, so how they were communicating with the artists and stuff like that. And at that time, I learned a lot. That's where I picked up a lot of the audio tech.
I'll bet. And at that time, it was analog.
Yes,
right?
At that time it was analog, and I learned how to cut tape.
Yeah.
With a razor blade.
Cut splice. Yep. On the diagonal.
Yeah, exactly, on the diagonal.
Yep.
And tape it together, and that was my experience, and I got really good at it.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it, and the fact that I got good at it meant that when the digital thing came along, it was really easy, because after years of having to listen for the point where you were going to mark the tape with a grease pencil and cut, I could look at it and see where the beginning of the next word was.
Right.
So immediately after the ad agency, I got offered a job at a music publishing company, and that was where I started in really working in the studio. And so after a number of years of that was really where I learned to be an engineer and learn to do music production.
Yeah.
Because at the time, again, we're back talking in the analog age, right? Every writer did not have a studio in their home.
Right, like now.
Like now, right? And so one of the advantages of getting a publishing deal was that the publisher would put you into the studio. And that studio was the studio I worked in. So I had kind of day in and day out working with songwriters to make the demos for them to show to other artists to. So that was how that went, and I learned all those things. I learned a lot there.
Yeah.
And then later on, I taught at the New School. I taught audio engineering there to adults who kind of wanted to maybe move into that field.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Julian, it's just so interesting to hear you talk about that, because it's really different worlds. Being in the studio, it's all of a piece, and you've got everybody there working with each other.
Right.
Not to say that doesn't happen now, but certainly not to the degree that you experienced.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It is a different experience now. And then that was great. I mean, the first time I walked into a recording studio and saw 5 musicians sitting on the other side of the glass playing together, it was one of those immediate moments when I said, "Oh well, this is where I want to be, and that's what I want to do."
Yeah, and you wanted to be on that side,
right.
the production side.
I wanted to be on the I wanted to be on the production side.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Do you miss that piece of it?
I do miss that. I mean, and in the past few years, I have. I've produced fewer things, but I mean, I produce at least an album every year that I've been here. I produced 3 albums with Lisa McCormick.
Yes.
And I made a record with Clayton Sabine. I made a record with. There's a number of artists in the area. I did a couple of cuts with Steve West. We did on his record, things like that. So that stuff is is available. I'm actually about to produce a record for a group called Big Woods Voices, which is Will Danforth, Amanda Whitman, Alan Ball, and Becky Graber.
Very good.
Yeah.
Phew, memory rules out. Yes, lovely.
Right.
Well, that sounds great. And so you will be in a studio with them.
Yeah, I will be in the studio. We'll be in the studio with them and all recording together.
Nice.
So yeah, it'll be that, and that harkens back to that kind of
Right.
experience.
Yes, and I think, also the pandemic has interrupted that kind of interplay and relationship with
Right.
musicians,
Yeah,
yes.
that's great.
And I just want to give a special shout out to one of the people you mentioned, your partner, Lisa McCormick, who is
Yes.
one of our local stars in the music world, and she's been here for a long time. We'll talk more about her in this show. So when you were back, like say in the 80s, you'd left the ad agency, you were doing production, you were working with a lot of artists, and you were also touring the world a lot.
Right.
Yeah. What was that period of time like for you?
That was amazing. I hadn't been out of the country, and my friend and artist Kid Creole said to me, "Well, we got a chance to go to Paris to do a show. Do you want to go?"
And you said,
I said, "Yeah, yes." And then that started like a 5 or 6 year period when I spent about half the year of every year outside of the country, in Europe, primarily touring and working as a production manager for them and mixing sound in everything from big festivals
Yeah.
to theaters to, they did very, very well. They became very, very popular in Europe. And we had a number of years of doing that, and it was great. And we went to Japan, and we did some wonderful things, and it was a really great experience. And after having, done shows in New York and Boston, and to go to Europe and work with the European crew. We used to stage the tours out of the UK, and so I had an entirely English crew who gave me an incredible hard time.
Really?
Oh yeah, it was great. It was all in good fun. But to have a production manager come from
America.
From America,
Yeah.
it's like, really, who are you and can you do this job? So it was good training. It was good training, and I certainly after that I felt like I could do, almost anything. That
Really?
was, yeah,
Really?
because
I believe
because it
that,
was,
yeah.
because it was a lot of responsibility because you had to be. I was in charge of making sure that when the band arrived for sound check, that everything was everything was as it should be.
Right.
And anyone who's done any kind of production knows that it doesn't just happen that way.
That's right.
There
That's
are
right.
days when you have to go into march into someone's office and say, why there's no bathroom?
Yeah.
Where's the
Right.
or there's or there's I can remember being somewhere in Italy and there were holes in the stage. I was like, no, you can't have holes in the stage. You have to fix the holes in the stage before we can go on. So that was, you were responsible, and you're responsible for all the people on the crew and
Yeah.
making sure everything was operating.
You know what it takes to put on any kind of a production, and the details are incredible. You seem like a pretty laid-back guy. I would be a nervous wreck.
Yeah, well, I cultivated that. It was the only way to.
Did you?
It was kind of the only way to be.
Yeah.
Because panicking was not really an option.
It's a certain demeanor that you would have to have.
Right. You
Yeah.
kind of, and I found that has worked really well for me in working with, everyone from, Yellow Barn and
Yeah.
the Jazz Center and NEYT, and Next Stage, all those places.
Yeah.
There's actually a tremendous number of details to get straight, and it all has to be right. And it's much better to deal with if you can be calm as opposed to panicking. And some of it has to do with just being prepared.
Right.
Being prepared ahead of time.
Yes.
For all those things.
And having done it probably 10,000
Well, yeah,
times.
having done it, right, definitely.
Julian, I was thinking today, I was taking my morning walk, and as I was walking, the sun actually came out, finally. So I was just so aware I was thinking about sound, and so aware of the fact that, we hear things all day long, all the time. And we let things in or not. Like all of a sudden I thought birds, and so I'm listening to the birds, right? And I think that there's something about sound that's both. It's so ephemeral, and it's emotional and it's personal.
Right.
You know, and I know that you have professionally attuned your ear and attuned yourself to hearing things. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I know you've also collaborated with people in trying to bring forth different ways of appreciating music and sound.
Right. Well, it's interesting what you say about what you're saying about how individual it is. You know, everyone hears things kind of slightly differently, and them being there in a studio or in a theater, everyone's perception is slightly different. And there is the added difference if you're in a theater that you have the visual component, and your brain just adds in all kinds of information that you may not even be actually hearing, but that the environment is telling you that it kind of should be that way, and so it adds all those things.
Yeah.
A microphone, when you put a microphone in the space, the microphone has no brain. It's all physics.
Yeah.
It takes in the physics of sound that is coming to the microphone. So, if you want to represent something to someone that sounds natural, or you want to present them with a particular kind of sound in order to make them feel a particular way, you have to be able to. You have to know what the microphone is doing. You have to know what you can put together to convey that, sound.
There's real artistry in that, and experience.
Well, yeah. There's a lot of experience. I mean, certainly when I first started to be a recording engineer, I thought, well, I can just put a microphone on everything, and I can manipulate everything, and I can make it whatever I want it to be. And as time went on, you realize that was not actually so.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of finesse that goes into being able to capture sound like that.
Yeah. Your collaborations, I know you've done some with Seth Knopf at Yellow Barn, and I know some other places. What of those has really captured you and really interested you?
Well, the Yellow Barn experience has been just amazing, because it's a kind of recording that I always wanted to do and never really had a chance to. And so coming here to Brattleboro, I worked for a long while with Friends of Music at Guilford, and then I started working with Yellow Barn. Excuse me, first doing recordings for them, and it was eye-opening, because it's a different kind of recording. Studio recording often is a piece of this and a piece of that and a piece of that and a piece of the other. And recording the acoustic ensembles is more like taking an accurate audio picture of what it is that's going on.
Yeah.
You know, people, if they're going to listen to the recording, you'd like them to have that feeling that they're in the hall. You know, so actually just trying to perfect that and working on that has been really great. And then with Seth in particular, you know, for the Yellow Barn Festival, I record every concert.
Wow.
Every concert. So imagine the whole,
Yeah.
you know, it can be 85 concerts over that 7-week period.
Wow.
And Seth then listens to every one of those. I will give him a mix of the many microphones that are in that hall. I will make a mix that, that I think is good to start from. And then Seth will then listen and say, can we bring this out a little bit more?
Yeah.
Or can we, I feel like the balance is, right? And it's a great collaboration.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to be guided by someone who's, and his hearing is in another realm entirely.
That's fascinating. It's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, I feel really fortunate to be doing that.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because it sort of goes back to even when you were younger, talking about doing this kind of production. You're working in the dark. You're working behind the scenes.
Right.
You're not. People do not see you. People do not realize what's going on.
Right.
But you're not seen very much.
Right, exactly. Occasionally at Yellow Barn, I'm seeing I have to come out and put out some microphones or put out some speakers or something
Right,
like that. But
yeah.
then I go back into my little hallway.
Yeah.
And excuse me. And yeah, and I do have people who say, "Where do you go?
Yes.
What do
Where are you?
Where are you?"
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. How is that? It's a different kind of job.
It is a different kind of job, but it's pretty great. I mean, I do that, and the other things that I do for Yellow Barn is that when they have productions that require pieces that require electronic enhancement,
Yep.
or the artist is playing with a recording,
Yeah.
things like that, then I get to play those recordings and do interact with the musicians to make that
Yeah.
that happen.
Yeah.
So it's a really wonderful thing. And I should say that, sitting in the dark and listening to the Yellow Barn concert in my headphones,
Yeah.
right, that's going on the other side of the wall, right, kind of reminds me of, one of my earliest memories of listening to music was as a child listening to the radio.
Yeah. Right.
Now my mom would listen to pretty middle of the road, bunch of music, show tunes, and and things like that. Not a lot of pop music.
Yeah.
And I would listen to these things, and I would imagine that it was happening in a space. So I would have this kind of mental picture.
Yeah.
Of, a room with a lot of musicians in it, and these things were happening
Yeah.
there, right? And so it's not so surprising that eventually I came around to actually doing that, and that's always fascinated me, and I think of it kind of as being a space
Yes.
that I'm trying to create, no matter what kind of record I'm doing, a pop record or a classical thing
Yes.
or whatever.
That's a great take on it, and it's also a really great description, I think, of so many of us who would put on a 33 1/3 album, right, and look at liner notes while we're doing it, and we're imagining the people in the studio, or we're imagining, or the music is taking us somewhere. That's, of course, the other big piece of it,
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and it is transporting. It is transporting. Music is, if I'm coming back, I want to come back as a musician. I don't even care what kind, Yeah, there's something, that world is just, it's another whole world. You've worked with so many people in town. You did a great thing years ago called Bratstock,
Right.
similar to Woodstock.
Right. Well, yeah. Yeah, Bratstock I did with Elisa McCormick and Tom Anderson. And I put together a concert that was populated completely by artists in the Brattleboro area.
Yeah.
They all donated their services, which was really, really amazing. We kind of collaborated with WTSA and made so that we were raising money and goods for Feed the Thousands. So that's what we did that for 3 years, and it was great fun. I mean, it was a little nerve-wracking, but it was great fun. The first year we did it on the grounds of NEYT.
Oh.
And that was kind of fun, kind of in that in
that area,
the courtyard right outside there.
Yep.
Right, and then the other 2 years we did it on the Commons.
Yes.
And it was a great experience, and it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And we had a good time. We had a really good time doing it.
After 9/11, you came up to Brattleboro.
But after 9/11,
Yeah.
I did. I moved to Brattleboro, kind of in that as part of the big exodus
Yes.
from New York. But this place made good sense to me, and also I had met a number of years earlier. I met Lisa McCormick, and we became great friends, and that was really how we started to get together. And
Yeah.
we wanted to. We started to plan to make a record with her. This was before she made her first record, and then Jonathan Edwards found her and made her first record with her, right? But I have done at least three other records with Lisa,
Yeah.
and Lisa and I discovered that we were supposed to be together, and so that brought me here to Brattleboro.
That's so great. And now you get to go away for the winter. You have this very cool thing happening in Vieques.
Yes, we have a cool thing happening in Vieques where Lisa and I have established something we call the Ukulele Island Retreat.
Yes.
Where people come to and spend time with us, and we do ukulele on the beach, and we do, all kinds of activities that you want to do in the islands,
Yeah.
and play
Yes.
play ukulele. So it's a really great thing, and we're getting ready to do that in January, and we are fully subscribed right now. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, after a year off especially. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That's exciting. And Lisa is the ukulele guru.
Yes, she is.
She really is.
Yes, she
Yeah,
is
it's such a great thing. So, Julian, you've been in Brattleboro now for over 20 years. What are your thoughts and feelings about being part of the community, and just how supported, what kind of interactions? What's your feeling about Brattleboro?
I feel really great about Brattleboro, really great about being in Brattleboro.
Oh, yeah, you're in town now.
I'm in town,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
We live right in town.
Yeah.
And I have to say that I've been blessed to be able to work with most of the really exciting cultural outlets in Brattleboro.
Yes.
I work with NEYT. I'm getting ready to do Sound for Beauty and the Beast with them. And the Jazz Center.
Yeah.
And Next Stage. And
Women's chorus.
the Brattleboro Women's Chorus.
Yeah.
I've been really, 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 really fortunate. And in fact, I've had more opportunities here in Brattleboro than I probably would have had anywhere else.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is. It really is amazing, and I get to work with some amazing, and Yellow Barn. I get to work with these amazing,
Yes.
professional people who are at the height of their achievement.
Yes.
And I get to be with them. So I feel really good about being in Brattleboro. I have a terrific life in Brattleboro, I have to say.
That's so great. Well, that is wonderful to hear. We are so glad that you took some time out from your wonderful life to come on the show and talk about it. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Wendy.
Yeah.
Really, it's been great.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Okay.
Thanks to all of you, too, for joining in. We thank Julian McBrowne for being with us today and hearing more about the other side of a stage, what's going on. We really have no idea what goes into productions, but it's so wonderful, and to have people like Julian who know what they're doing, to give us these fabulous theater and music and everything else. So stay tuned. Stay tuned to the music in the area, the different theater that's going on, as well as everything else. And stay tuned to Here We Are. We'll be here every week. Thanks so much.